Penn State fans, it's been a minute. Blue White Breakdown presented by PennLive. Johnny McGonigal here with Max Ralph. We're recording this on Friday, as some people call it. I'm going to call it that. It's a good start going into the weekend, Max. Friday, February 21st in the morning. If any news happens in the next, hour after, we will not be discussing, but we'll be back, I'm sure, to discuss anything that may or may not happen. Not expecting anything, but you never know. It's the off season, Max. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, Johnny. It's kind of weird. This is one of the times I feel like the past week or so has been one of the few true lulls of the year with covering this team. It's going to change real quick. Next week's going to be a big one, but kind of had a brief little bit of time to just kind of relax and figure some things out. So it's been good. Just chilling. Just chilling. I mean,
Yeah.
you of course weren't exactly chilling last Friday, but had a good time. So
Yeah. Yeah, I took PTO for the parade.
yeah,
It was needed. Had some family, friends, good time down there on the Parkway, and enjoying that. But yeah, you get the Super Bowl come down. It's like you got I don't know what it's. I'm sure it's not pleasant in State College. In Philly, it's like windy and 19 degrees. It sucks.
it's
Um,
bad.
yeah.
It's real bad out here. I actually just started volunteering at the local animal shelter, and I did my first training session last weekend, and I've never seen so much ice in my life. Walking these dogs, they almost made me fall like 6 times, and everybody who was there was like, "You picked the worst night ever to come learn how to do this." it was crazy.
I
Like
just
the entire grass area was just covered.
I just picture you like one of those cartoons where like you got like 12 dogs and they're just like pulling you. That's great though. That's awesome,
Yeah.
man.
No, I was super excited about it, but it's just funny you mentioned the weather because I was like, yeah, it's really bad. It was like single digits around here on Tuesday. It's bad. And Johnny, I know you're in the same boat as me, but I'm just praying for some golf weather, man.
I'm so jealous. A couple of my buddies are in warm weather right now. One of my old friends from Pittsburgh, moved to Florida, and he's
Okay.
golfing this weekend, and he's just
Yeah.
bragging about his tee time. And I'm like, buddy, we're happy and hopeful that it's gonna like crack 40 degrees in Philly in these next few days. So
Yeah.
yeah, very much looking forward to golf weather whenever that comes, because I don't know if it's going to be here anytime soon. But
It could be a
um,
while.
yeah, Max, you mentioned it's been kind of it was kind of a lull of a week a little bit. The news of the week, or really of the last 2 weeks, um, and James Franklin addressed it when he talked to the media last Tuesday, was Ja'Juan Seider leaving Penn State after 7 years. A longtime running backs coach, also had other titles, was a big recruiter, specifically in Florida. He leaves for Notre Dame. Reported pay bump, pretty significant pay bump, and don't blame him necessarily for
Mhm.
not only that, but also a new challenge. He's been at Penn State for almost a decade, it seems. It seems like he's been here ever since James Franklin was here, which is not the case. But Penn State hires Stan Drayton, most recently Temple's head coach, experience coaching running backs at Ohio State, Texas, Tennessee, NFL experience as well. What's your initial read on Seider's departure? Because we didn't discuss this yet. Seider's departure and the arrival of Stan Drayton.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of layers to this. I think when you look purely at Sider's departure, it's a surprising one. He's not a guy who he was a guy who was here for 7 years, and how many times said, it's got to be the perfect situation for me to leave Penn State. Like, he has always been adamant that he's happy at Penn State, that this has been a great situation. Credit to James Franklin for keeping him happy when the guy could have gone and been an offensive coordinator at a couple of spots. There's a lot that went into him even being here for as long as he was. But clearly, the timing worked out. It is a bump in pay. And I do think Sider's also a guy who said he wants to be a head coach in the past. Sometimes stuff like this just happens. So I think it came as a surprise, but, Is it the end of the world? No, probably not. Is it, just a shocking, doesn't make sense move at all for Seider? No, I don't think so. And I also saw some stuff on Twitter this week. He put out a thank you note to Penn State, and funnily enough, misspelled a couple of names from the administration, but his heart was in the right place. But I saw a few fans on Twitter being like, "Don't do that! Like, you left out of nowhere for the team that beat us in the Orange Bowl." I'm like, don't do that. Like, he's been here for 7 years. Like,
Yeah.
you're lucky to have an assistant coach for 3 years in college football these days. Like, I think the guy was being completely genuine. Like, for example, on his Instagram story, literally last night, he had reposted a photo of Penn State running back commit Messiah Mickens. Like, the guy has built so many relationships around here. Like, I think he still has complete genuine love for the running backs in the room. Like, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. Like, this was not a premeditated thing. An opportunity arose, he took it, and that's that. I mean, really, that's what happened here, and I don't think there's any reason to have bad blood on either side. Now, when you talk about bringing Drayton in, and I'll let you kind of run with it, Johnny, but I really think that this is like as good as you could possibly do.
Yeah, especially given the timing,
Mm-hmm.
because you mentioned it being a surprise. The coaching carousel, head coaches and coordinators and all that, very much settled.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that it's this late, right? It's post winter portal. It's post, really, into winter workouts, and soon enough here, Max, in a month or so, 5 weeks, and maybe not even maybe a little less than a month. I'm trying to remember the exact date for spring ball.
It's right around a month. Might be. I guess when you consider that February has less days than March, I think it's like right at a month. So
Yeah. So the timing of that, right? Like a month before spring ball, basically, to lose an assistant coach is not ideal. But the fact that you have a guy like Stan Drayton just kind of fall in your lap a little bit, similar vibes to when Tom Allen was, fired or let go at Indiana. Manny Diaz leaves, and it's like, okay, cool. That former head coach who knows how to coach defense, and is looking for a spot to go and coach at a high level, just kind of falls in your lap, and it just works out really well. So that's kind of how I view the Stan Drayton bit of it. In terms of is this a downgrade? Is this an upgrade? I think it's pretty like for like in terms of the resume, the reputation, everything that comes along with that. So I think it's a really good hire given the circumstances. You have an experienced guy, an older guy. It's not, I saw DeMarco Murray was a name that was floated. Former Oklahoma running back who started in the NFL for a while. He's a younger guy. And if you have him come in and try to, still kind of cutting his teeth a little bit, or someone of that mold, when you have a running back room with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, two seniors who are just trying to go out the right way and compete for a national title. And that's what this offseason has been about, for Penn State, whether it's player retention, hiring Jim Knowles away from Ohio State. Like, it's been all focused on winning a national title this upcoming season. And Stan Drayton is just kind of plug and play, as they say. And so I like the hire a lot, and I don't blame Ja'Juan. I really don't, because like you mentioned, there were times where it looked like he was looking elsewhere, or he had been courted for years from other schools, and at some point when the number is big enough and the opportunity is good enough, it's not like he's going to a bad running back room either. Like, obviously he has love for Nick and Katron and all those guys, but to go to a Notre Dame and get to coach Jeremiah Love, who is, I think, a dark horse Heisman contender going into next season, like, not a bad situation whatsoever. So, yeah, like, I think all things considered, it clearly worked out for Ja'Juan that he made that decision, and it worked out as well as it could for Penn State.
Yeah, no, I'm never gonna have that touchdown run by Jeremiah Love leave my brain from the Orange Bowl, because dude was on one leg and was just shucking dudes. It was impressive. But absolutely right. I like Stan Drayton has tons of experience and it has really good pedigree. I mean, that's the thing. When I think DeMarco Murray was the first name that kind of popped up with this, and I went through it and I'm looking at it and I'm like, who has Oklahoma had that's gone into the league since he's been there? Like, and it's not really anyone. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson, but like he's fine with the Patriots. He's not been absurd. And beyond him, it's a light room. Like, yeah, DeMarco Murray's a big name because Oklahoma's big program. Obviously, been kind of on the downswing lately, but Murray also former NFL back who was really good. But beyond that, it's like I'm not sure the credentials were really there. And you look at Drayton, it's the complete opposite. I mean, the dude had Bijan Robinson, Roshan Johnson at his last stop at Texas, Brian Westbrook early in his career. He's got guys like Carlos Hyde and Zeke Elliott at Ohio State. When he was in the NFL, he was with the Bears, and Jordan Howard, who was also an Eagle for you, Johnny, and all our Eagles fans. Like, Howard had 1,300 yards as a rookie with Drayton there. Like, the guy has serious credentials. And one thing that I am curious about this, Johnny, that you mentioned, maybe they bring in a younger guy, whatever. It was reported that Drayton's only got a 1-year deal. Maybe is he looking at this just as a stepping stone? Whenever we get to talk to him, it's not gonna he's not gonna say, yeah, I'm leaving next year. Like he's not gonna say that. But I am curious to see how this turns out. Like, is that what this is? Because when you're coming off of a failed head coaching tenure and you have the resume like he does, chances are if the running backs go out there and have a really good season, he's going to have some other opportunities. So just curious to see where it goes. But all in all, like the experience, the resume, a fresh look for Singleton and Allen, like those guys are what they are. It can't really hurt to have somebody else in their ear necessarily. I mean, it's definitely emotional for them to see Ja'Juan leave. Like, he's probably a father figure for those guys at this point. But yeah, I think bringing Drayton in is really truly a home run. We can throw the word around a lot with coaching hires, but I really do think that this one is a home run for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, you mentioned Drayton's tenure at Temple, and yeah, I mean he got he got let go, and so it was a failure. Temple, man, you could put Bill Parcells in his prime at Temple, and in this current iteration of Temple,
yes,
and it's not doing anything. I mean, they were talking about possibly closing the program. Now, not to go on a total tangent, but Casey Keeler, former Delaware coach and Sam Houston State, now at Temple, I actually like that hire for them. So we'll see. We'll see what the Owls do, in this upcoming season. But no, Stan Drayton, great hire. One bit on Ja'Juan leaving too. That like the other layer to this onion, if you will, is the guys behind Nick and Katron, because they're locked in, right? Unless they wanted to, if it was a really bad hire and they got spooked and basically decided to leave in the April transfer portal, that doesn't seem like it's going to happen. So those two guys locked in for 2025. The guys behind him, Quentin Martin, Corey Smith, Cam Wallace, and they got two signees coming in, Jabri Wallace-Coleman and Tyke Hayes. Going into the offseason, even before Ja'Juan's exit, I think we both kind of thought like, hey, maybe one of those guys will transfer out just because Nick and Katron are back. And I don't think anyone would have expected them to be back when those backups, when those reserves were being recruited. I don't think they thought that Nick and Katron would be 4-year guys at Penn State necessarily. I don't think the Ja'Juan bit changes that necessarily one way or the other. We talked to Quentin Martin and Corey Smith last week up at Penn State when they made freshmen available for the first time on campus. Both of those guys said that they're not entertaining the portal. I mean, it's not open right now. It won't open until April, kind of in the middle or towards the end of spring practice. So just something to keep an eye on, in terms of like upcoming, like the month, next 5-6 weeks, reading the tea leaves of what James Franklin says in terms of who's performing, who's not in spring camp, who's standing out. He might be, if he's asked, and this is just a Franklinism, if he's asked, say, specifically about Quentin Martin, he might say, oh, yeah, all the running backs are doing great, just to like boost everyone up and be like, hey, don't leave. But we'll see. We'll see how that situation works out. But I don't think the Ja'Juan Drayton, swap really plays into it necessarily.
Yeah, I agree. I do think, like, we talked about it when Nick and Katron said they're coming back, you do kind of start to worry about a pure numbers crunch in that room, because like 7 scholarship backs in one position group is not common, and not something that's necessarily sustainable. Of course, Nick and Katron are both seniors. They're both gone after this year, but we'll see. There, is a guy like Cam Wallace who, had that number 3 role, but had a really brutal injury. Like, he's probably going to end up buried on the depth chart just because he's going through a lot of recovery. I mean, like, that was a rough injury. What does that do for a guy like him? I mean, he's a good player. Penn State had a lot of faith in him, but sometimes stuff just doesn't work out for you. But I'm curious to see where it goes. I'm with you. Yeah, Quentin and Corey are going to get touches this year, both of them. Like that's without a doubt. Obviously, Nick and Katron are still going to steal the show, but those two guys are going to get touches. As probably the number 3 back, both of them, because that's kind of what happened this past year. So yeah, I don't think it impacts things, but it is definitely a room to watch, just because there's cuts coming, most likely. Assuming everything continues on the track that it's on right now, there are going to be cuts by August. And so, we'll see. But yeah, Stan Drayton, great hire. I think that's the bottom line.
One thing to quickly add on Quentin Martin, this time last year, really he early enrolled and, as a freshman, had a pretty good, spring camp, all things considered. Mm-hmm. I think that the talk was good around his explosiveness and everything. And I wrote a few stories back then about how he could have a role as a true freshman and all that. It didn't really come off, because it was Katron and Nick's show the entire season. I'm not selling my stock at all in Quentin Martin. The guy, and Corey Smith too, I'm not putting one over the other, but Quentin Martin as a pass catcher specifically is something that I think Penn State can really use this upcoming season, especially, when you lose a Tyler Warren, Harrison Wallace, and Omari Evans enter the portal. I know they've got Ross and Hudson coming in, and Luke Reynolds seems to be, next in line at tight end. But I think there's some fun ways that they can use Quentin Martin. And, if he can stay healthy, because he was dealing with some nagging injuries last year a little bit. I'm not selling my stock on any of those guys. But specifically Quentin Martin, I still think he has a really bright future at Penn State. Talk about bright futures, Max. We thought that Nick and Katron would probably be, or at least one of them would be at the Combine next week in Indianapolis. They are not. They're going to be in Happy Valley. But there are some Penn Staters that will be at the Combine. A former Penn Stater, a Penn State alum, one Max Ralph, will be at the Combine in Indianapolis.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Joining fellow former Penn Stater Keandre Lambert-Smith, I might add. But
that'll be an interesting conversation. That'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, that'll be good. I'm really looking forward to asking him his thoughts on Drew Aller. I'm just going to leave it at that.
You should just ask him. Be like, so is Drew a leader? There were comments for people who might have missed this. Like, pretty much right after Keandre Lambert-Smith left Penn State, I think he went on a podcast, or maybe it was a media availability down at Auburn.
Yeah,
and he seemingly kind of questioned Drew's leadership.
There was no seemingly about it. He was talking mad trash on Drew, and after the season was over too, after Penn State lost, he was subtweeting Drew again. So it's going to be an interesting one. But the real guys that we're out there for, I mean, Keandre will be a topic of discussion, of course, when Penn State's receiver room is in the state it is, and there's a guy who's going to get drafted that used to be in the room. He'll be a topic of discussion, but obviously the big ones, Abdul Carter, Tyler Warren, are going to be there. We'll see what they do testing wise. Abdul Carter's a guy who doesn't need to test if he doesn't want to. I'm curious what kind of advice he's gotten from people, because the dude's going to go top 5 regardless. Warren could help his case with his testing, I think. Jalen Reed, KJ Winston, Kobe King. Those are the 5 guys who are going to be there. Jalen Reed is definitely those two. Both of those safeties are guys that I can't wait to figure out what some of their numbers are and hear a little more from them in the interviews next week as they go through the process, because both of them are extremely talented players that we've seen, up close at Penn State, but don't necessarily have the love nationally that, that they could have gotten. For Reed, it's really just because I don't think he pops off the page with his athleticism right away, but like if he tests well at the draft, like the numbers speak for themselves. Plus the leadership and the versatility that he gave Penn State on defense, it's hard to replace what he did. KJ Winston, of course, like he was getting national love. People were saying this guy could sneak into the first round. Well, he played a game and a half, and that really hurts. But the thing that he has going for him, in the way that James Franklin worded it, he is beautiful physically. He said that in the preseason, like he literally was like, he's beautiful, and I was like, okay, all right, true, like true.
Go off, Kate.
Yeah, no, KJ is shredded, heck of an athlete, and he's a guy, if fully healthy and able to test, is really going to boost his stock at the combine. Kobe King, I think you kind of know what you're getting athleticism wise. Probably a little above average, but he is a run stopping linebacker through and through. And so, yeah, it's going to be fun. Curious to hear from some guys. Of course, going to have to try and get Abdul to admit that he knows he's not playing for the Eagles next year, even though he really wants to. That's gonna be a fun one. I'm sure it's gonna come up. No matter who asks it. Tyler Warren will do well in interviews. Of course, he's always been a well put together guy for the media. And the rest of those guys, yeah, I think it's gonna be interesting. We're gonna learn a lot about some of these draft prospects, but it should be a good year for Penn State, even among guys who aren't there at the combine. I think there's a few that could get drafted. When you look at a Jalen Kimber, a Sal Wormley, there's probably some that are escaping my mind, but those are two big ones that people thought could have gotten an invite to the combine and were left off the list. So I'm excited to be out there. Should be good.
Yeah, in Abdul's perfect world, which, by the way, Abdul Carter, Philly native, was at the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And in his ideal world, the Eagles trade up for him, and then somehow acquire Micah Parsons. Those two play together, and they both wear number 11, and they get a penalty every play, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. It doesn't, because they're sacking the quarterback every it just who cares?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I did see there's the picture on, I forget what social media platform it was, of Abdul, tweeting about the Eagles and all that. And there were a bunch of people in his replies just being like, just go out there and walk your 40-yard dash to scare teams away, have terrible interviews, so that you fall all the way to the Eagles. Not going to happen. I mean, Abdul Carter might go number 1 overall, talking about, some of the mock drafts, which like everyone can do a mock draft now. I think I might actually do one for fun and put it on PennLive in whether that's next week or the week after. But so literally anyone can do it, right? Anyone who watches football or anyone who has access to a website. Mm-hmm. But the ones I pay attention to, and I know the ones you pay attention to, and Bob and all of us, ESPN, Jordan Reed and Field Yates from The Athletic, Nick Baumgartner and Dane Brugler, NFL.com, Daniel Jeremiah. Those guys are plugged in. They have sources within the league, former talent evaluators themselves, and know what they're talking about. There's been a lot of smoke around Abdul going number 1 overall, and there's kind of a consensus almost that he's the best player available in the draft. It's either him or Travis Hunter, and I think a lot of people lean towards Abdul. So we'll be interested to see if he does anything, because like you mentioned, Max, he doesn't necessarily have to do anything at the combine other than interviews. Tyler Warren also getting some. I feel like he's locked into the first round now, as much as a tight end can be locked in the first round. He might even go top 10. And that would be, by the way, here's a little tidbit. That would be the first time since 2000 that Penn State had 2 guys go in the top 10 of the same draft. It's Courtney Brown and LaVar.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would be a hell of a weekend for Penn State if they can boast that. But I think Tyler can get there too.
Yeah. I mean, top 10 would really surprise me. To be honest with you, I don't know what Tyler's going to test like.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he obviously is an incredible football player, as versatile as they come, but like he really like doesn't look the part. He never has. Like that's been a topic of discussion a lot, like with us in the press box or with people on the beat saying like Tyler Warren just looks like a normal dude. Aside like he's 6'6", but he doesn't have huge arms. He walks around, he's quiet. Like I don't know how he's gonna test. I don't know if he's gonna run a 4.5 or a 4.9. Like he could be anywhere in that range, but he's strong. And sometimes I think you just have to take a damn good football player for being
Yeah.
a damn good football player.
I was gonna say, like 4.5 or 4.9, regardless of what that 40 time is, that DB is not going to want to be standing in front of Tyler Warren when he catches the ball in open space.
Right.
Like regardless if he runs a 5.1.
Xavier Watts learned that the hard way.
Him and his helmet learned it the hard way.
Yes.
Yeah. So those two guys are the obvious, the top two, the big ones. They'll be on. So Max, you've never been to the combine, right? This is your first time. Okay. So the way the interviews are set up, basically you have like the big podiums where like they have to walk up like a little, set of stairs, so that the big crowds, like the big scrum around, everyone can kind of stand up, look up, and ask questions. Those are for the big guys, the first round guys, the quarterbacks. Abdul and Tyler I'm assuming, will get that treatment. And then off to the side, you'll have, smaller podiums for, the second to third to whatever round guys. And the other three guys for Penn State, I'm assuming will be there. Maybe KJ will get the big, podium treatment. But I'm interested to see what KJ says. I'm interested to see how he performs if he's able to, because I know that when he declared for the NFL draft, it was through Adam Schefter. And Shefty tweeted saying that KJ is basically on track to be cleared for on-field activities for the combine. So interested to see if he does stuff there, if he waits for pro day at Penn State, which is in a few weeks from now or a month from now. But it's going to be an interesting one. And you're going to have fun, by the way. The combine is a lot of fun.
I'm looking forward to it. Myself, our Steelers man, Nick Faribault, and Joe Hermit will all be out there. It's going to be a good week. Obviously, stay tuned for tons of content there. Johnny, talking about the last time Penn State had two guys go in the top 10, you reminded me of one more quick thing I want to hit on before we run out of this podcast. But that name, LaVar Arrington, has gotten back into the news for Penn State. Of course, his son, LaVar Man Arrington II, is now enrolled on campus, but he got his number, and it is that number 11, that Stick City. There's been a lot of debate about whether it's deserved, whether he needed to play a few years before he got it. Abdul Carter didn't have to wait. He got it right away. It's also the son of the guy who popularized the number. Like, let's just accept that he was always going to wear number 11, assuming Abdul left, which was obvious. I think he'll earn it with his play. Like he's going to be a good player. There is a lot of hype around him for good reason. He might take a year to figure things out, but the kid's going to be good. He's going to be good. And he's got the genes, and there is no way in hell that LaVar's kid was not wearing number 11 when he got here.
It's also not like, I know that there's a meaning behind the Stick City stuff, and the number 11. It's not like this is a tradition that supersedes like LaVar, goes back decades and decades and decades, 50, 60 years. And it's something that has been ingrained in it's a relatively recent thing. I know LaVar, he's 99 or 2000 that he got drafted.
Yeah, it's 25 years old now. Yeah.
Yeah. And beyond LaVar, I feel like I might be wrong. Someone might, I guess Brandon Bell wore it before.
Yeah, but
before Micah.
Bell got it after 1 or 2 years already being on campus. But he might be the only guy from the list that was in that situation, if I'm remembering correctly.
I feel like it was a thing, LaVar wearing 11 was a thing, and then it like became more popular again when Micah wore it
Yeah.
and became a Stick City thing. Like
Yeah.
I might be wrong. Like maybe internally in the Lash building, maybe that's something that we hadn't heard. But like I feel like this is a relatively recent thing. So to get everyone's undergarments and a bunch about it, like it doesn't seem to make any sense to me. Like the
No.
guy who popularized its kid is playing at Penn State. Like I would have understood if, say, LaVar, Jr., say he was like, you know what, I got to earn it, like whatever, and you make a deal about it that way. But I mean, who cares? Like,
Yeah.
really, like, not who cares, but like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is like, who else was going to wear it? Like,
I guess like Tony
but
Rojas, but yeah.
No, it makes sense that he got the number. I have no issue personally with him getting it as a freshman. Like I said, Abdul got it. They love him. They think he's going to be really good. Like he's also the son of the guy who made it popular first. No issues. I don't really see why there was debate about it online. I think it's people, like you said, I think probably forgetting that Abdul, wasn't even listen, he was a good prospect, but like when he got to Penn State, the national recruiting sites 24/7 on 3 did not think Abdul Carter was going to be the number 1 pick in the 2025 draft.
Abdul Carter was not, and I might have mentioned this on a podcast previously, but I was doing a story heading into the CFP, I think, it was either on Abdul or the 2022 class, that recruiting class. And at the signing day press conference, James Franklin was not asked about Abdul Carter. Typically, like during the press conferences, you ask about the biggest, he's asked about Drew and obviously Nick and Katron and those guys. He was asked about Anthony Ivey and Caden Saunders and like not asked about Abdul once. So that's like, he was a good prospect, but it's not like he came in as the Micah Parsons 5-star necessarily.
Right. And I think people are just forgetting that that's the case, and he got the 11 right when he got here. Like let's pump the brakes. It's a big deal, but I think LaVar Jr. is going to do. He's going to do just fine for himself, and I think any anger about the number should be ceased immediately.
That's when you're in the off season.
Yeah.
When you're getting upset about that, that's when you're in the off season.
That's absolutely correct.
Yeah, but hey, look, we're like you mentioned, it was kind of a lull this past week ish, but it's obviously picking up next week. You'll be out there in Indianapolis, like you mentioned, with Joe Herman and Nick Faribault. We've got on Monday, and I know Bob will be up in State College for sure. There's a Zoom option, so I might be calling in from Philly, might be driving up. I'm not sure yet. We'll see. But Stan Drayton will be made available Monday afternoon, as well as Pat Kraft. Maybe some updates on Beaver Stadium, on NIL, revenue sharing, whatever else. It's a laundry list of things to ask Penn State's athletic director. So there's going to be a lot of news, a lot of stuff next week. It's certainly going to pick up, and our podcast will pick up as well. I think we're recording one on Monday and Thursday potentially. I know that it kind of depends on your schedule out there in Indy. We'll be having you on with your report from what a great city. Like I love Indy, and I love the combine. Like in Indy, go to Kilroy's, go to Prime. Those places don't close. They're fun. Make sure you're good for like the 8:30 a.m. Player interviews. You don't want to miss talking to Jalen Reed and those guys, but remember you're there for work.
I was gonna say, Johnny, you try to get me fired.
Remember you're there for work. But it's fun. It is really a good time. Like you'll just be like at a bar like with friends or whatever. It's like, oh, like there's Wink Martindale ordering a round of shots for everyone. Like what the hell is that? And that's the kind of thing you'll see at the combine. So maybe you'll get a glimpse at Ben Johnson out there, your boy.
We'll see. We shall see. I'm hyped for it. I'm a Midwest guy, so I always love traveling back out there. Really looking forward to it. Should be good. But it's been, I don't even know when the last time Pat Kraft held a press conference was. I think it was for the Peach Bowl last year. Is that? No, it's got to be sooner than that.
Yeah.
Um,
But
but
it's been a while.
either
As
way, it's been a while. Of course, it happens when I'm out of town. I'll be zooming in from the car with unreliable internet connection, but looking forward to it. Bottom line is, it's going to be a hectic next week. Cool off for a couple more weeks, and then we're going to be right into spring ball. So buckle up. A lot of stuff going on in the world of Penn State. Appreciate you sticking with us.